Montana's Democratic governor, Steve Bullock, is running for president. Earlier this afternoon, he officially kicked off his campaign, speaking to students at his hometown high school in Helena.
After the 2016 election, and when I won in Montana, it was a little bit unique because this was a state that President Trump won, and about 20 to 30% of my voters voted for Donald Trump. But the level of division and the level of recognizing that it's not how we do it in Montana. Like, we actually figure out a way to make things work. Appreciate you all letting me stop by my old classroom as we begin the journey for these next steps to see what we can do to make certain that the improbable is achievable for all Americans, to make certain that the country that we hand off to you is better than the one who was handed off to us.
Joining me now from Missoula is Montana Public Radio senior news analyst Sally Mauk. Sally is also the host of MTPR's weekly political analysis program, Campaign Beat. Welcome, Sally. Great to have you with us.
So, thanks for having me.
Many of our viewers may not be too familiar with the Montana governor. What can you tell us about him?
Well, he's a governor who's been popular and effective at getting his agenda passed through what has been a Republican-dominated legislature throughout his 2 terms. And that's his biggest selling point, I think, when he runs for president, is that he's someone who can reach across the aisle and get people who have a different philosophy, different point of view than he does, and get them to compromise enough to get things done. I would say that will be his central message, that he was able to win re-election by 4 points in a state that went 20 points for President Trump. And I think it will be a harder sell nationally maybe than it's been in Montana for him to work across the aisle, but that's his pitch.
And what more can you tell us about his platform? What sorts of issues will he be running on, and why is he running for president?
Well, I think he's running for the same reason all the other candidates are. He thinks he'd be a good president. And his issues are going to be that the country is divided and they need someone to be president who can solve that division in the country. And then his second big issue, and one that he's worked on as governor, is campaign finance reform. He certainly believes that the current campaign finance system is responsible for corruption in politics and a diminution of what can be accomplished in politics. And he has been successful at getting some meaningful campaign finance reform passed in Montana, and he would like to be able to do that nationally as well. I think those are going to be his 2 biggest issues.
And now, as we heard him talking about when he was addressing that classroom there, he was able to win re-election as governor in 2016 at the same time that President Trump won Montana by more than 20 points. And he pointed out that some of his voters also voted for President Trump. So does this suggest he may have a more broad appeal than most of the other Democratic candidates running for president?
Well, we'll soon find out. I think he thinks he can certainly appeal to people who maybe are voted for President Trump because they wanted a big change and maybe are not as satisfied now as they would hope they would be. He's certainly also going to appeal to people who think, despite what is on paper a good economy, they personally are not faring as well. Certainly in Montana, there are farmers who are suffering under the trade war with China. And I think across the country, there are going to be people who are going to be looking at their own personal finances and wondering why they aren't doing better. I think he's going to be hitting that economic theme as well, and saying that he's someone who recognizes that and would have policies that would help them better than what the current administration is doing.
Right. It is an interesting contrast when the economy is so strong, but you personally are not feeling it. You're a vulnerable voter then. You're open perhaps to change. So this idea, though, that he can sort of reach across the aisle and appeal to sort of moderate Republicans and moderate Democrats, could there be a flip side to that? Is he perhaps too moderate to succeed in the Democratic primary?
Well, there is a divide in the Democratic Party for sure. I think what he is going to pitch is that he is progressive on some issues, certainly on social issues. He's pro-choice, he's pro-gay marriage, et cetera. And I think he's going to pitch that he is a practical realist when it comes to other issues like the economy and on issues like climate change. He certainly believes that climate change is a problem. He's probably not someone that would support something like the Green New Deal, or in terms of health care, he would not support Medicare for all. He would see that as something that is not a practical solution at this time,
right.
But he would be certainly for health care reform. So I think he would appeal to some progressives and appeal certainly to people who are in the central part of the Democratic Party as well.
All right. Well, Sally Mauk, we thank you so much for your insight.
Thank you for having me. My pleasure.
And a quick programming note. Today on Red and Blue, Steve Bullock sits down with our CBS News political correspondent Ed O'Keefe. That's at 5 p.m. Eastern.